With the recent release of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Phase 4 of the MCU is finally complete. But did the movie live up to the expectations? Let's find out. So honestly, going into this movie, I'll be honest with you guys, I was definitely not exactly looking forward to it. I think the best word to put it is probably apathetic at best. With all of the recent Marvel movies and TV shows that have come out recently, I think it's death by a million paper cuts, and I think I was finally starting to lose interest in what was to come. So when I went into this movie, I was like, you know what? As long as it's somewhat decent, story holds up, and they pay touching homage to Chadwick Boseman's death, that's really all I could ask for. And let me just say, it delivered. Finally! Let me go ahead and address the biggest thing that's on everyone's mind, is that this movie really had no place to go after Chadwick Boseman passed away. It was such a surprise for everybody, and it was so tragic to lose such an incredible actor and human being. And with that, they basically had to throw away the script that they were working on for the second Black Panther and had to rewrite it from the ground up without Chadwick Boseman in it. Usually when you hear stories like this, the producers and the directors usually have their backs against the wall to try to produce at least a watchable product. And I'm kind of letting my bias show through and let you guys early what I thought of the movie, but it was really good. Against all of the impossible odds, they somehow pulled out of their butts an incredible movie. Now, before I get into too many things, I'm gonna go ahead and announce a massive spoiler warning. I'm gonna release this episode about a week after the movie drops. So if you have not seen the movie yet, or if you're not interested in spoilers at all, go ahead and just click off this video, go watch the movie, and then come back and let me know what your thoughts are.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Now let's go ahead and take a look at my thoughts with this movie, starting with the good. And starting out, I would say one of the best things about this movie is its tone. It's reflective, somber, emotional. These are all beats that you really need to drive home, especially with not having your Black Panther leading the way. Specifically, the first couple scenes at the beginning and then the final scene at the end. Oh my gosh, nothing has tugged at my heartstrings more in a Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame, and that was the accumulation of, what was it, like 3 phases of Marvel movies? I'll be completely honest with you guys, I got emotional and 100% teared up. And I think that was exactly what the audience needed to feel in those moments.
It's enough to make a grown man cry.
The absolute respect that they had for Chadwick's legacy, you felt it in every single shot, every single frame. All of the actors' portrayals, all of the actors' emotions, you could feel that they were really struggling with his passing. And oh my gosh, it added so much to the weight of this movie. You gotta think, most of the returning characters in this movie were characters that were side characters in Black Panther. And so this is their first time being given the complete spotlight. And it's not given to one specific character, they all basically have to share being the main character. And they do this very well. The actress who portrays Shuri, Angela Bassett who portrays T'Challa's mother, the actress who portrays Okoye, I don't remember her name, so you're gonna forgive me for that one, but oh my gosh, she knocks it out of the park. But just like what everybody else has been saying, Angela Bassett deserves the MVP of this movie by far. She brings a specific weight and gravitas to each situation that she's in, and every time she speaks, you listen. And words just can't describe how much she commands a room whenever she's in it. Definitely gotta give her her flowers. You can really feel these heavy themes of loss, grief, revenge, and they don't shy away from this. And I love that. I know I briefly touched on this earlier, but too many times in recent Marvel projects have we had a super serious scene where you really just want to soak in it and savor the moment, only to be undercut by a quick jab or a little joke everywhere like a ha ha, gotcha.
The Illuminati will see you now.
The Illuminati? Stop it. Get some help.
And that completely negates any type of emotion they wanted you to feel in the scene previously. And that's why I'm so grateful that in this movie, it still had its humor, but most of the time it really tried to keep on that path of focusing on the narrative. And yes, this movie does stray away every now and then and have a joke at an ill-placed time, but this is one of those times where it doesn't detract from the movie as a whole, and it's a lot less noticeable, if that makes any sense.
Take another step toward me.
See how they teach the children to treat their guests. I like it.
Even though this movie didn't really have a lot of action, when they did have action scenes, they felt very thought out and pre-planned. The CGI was really good. The fight choreography was incredible. Pretty much anything that involves Namor's people was absolutely breathtaking to watch. The opening attack on the military ship by Namor's people was one of the prime instances that comes to mind of how something like that can be so gripping. It was literally edge of your seat suspense all the way through. Also, the bridge fight between Okoye and Chief Waterboy, I don't know his name.
Put some respect on my name.
So extremely well choreographed. Because you've bought into the darker themes of this movie, you really don't know what could happen next. Could Okoye lose her life in this battle? We're left wondering if she might actually get overpowered. And oh my gosh, compared to the stuff we've had recently like Thor Love and Thunder and She-Hulk, the CGI in this movie is so much better. Going into this, I was definitely worried because the first Black Panther wasn't really groundbreaking when it came to CGI, and I think there's a lot of moments in that movie that really took me out of it. and I was really afraid of what we were going to be seeing coming into this, especially considering that there's going to be an entire underwater city it's not Atlantis. In the comics, Namor's people are from Atlantis, but they rewrote it to be some Mayan city. Forgive me, but I have no idea was it Talocan? Talocan. Yeah. I sure hope that's the right one. But yeah, it's an entire city underwater, and that takes a lot of creative CGI, and they pulled it off amazingly. I love the detailed environments and how everything had a certain weight to it, and honestly, I might actually prefer the underwater CGI in this movie compared to Aquaman, which is almost exclusively underwater.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
That's crazy. And when it comes to Wakanda itself, for the first time in probably any type of movie that it's been in, Wakanda really feels extremely vulnerable. Like the fact that Namor is able to penetrate their defenses so easily when we first see him, and when he actually leads a full-on assault to Wakanda, you get this sinking feeling of like, oh shoot, is Wakanda actually gonna get destroyed? I mean, they take a dude that has freaking wings on his feet, and they actually make him feel super intimidating. Some people may see this movie as slow, and I actually wouldn't fault you for that. It really sometimes does seem to drag on a little bit. The exposition does go on sometimes a bit too much for my liking, but I do believe that this movie definitely needed to be more on the slow side as opposed to being super fast paced, super witty, super quick that we're used to. And I think that's why the length didn't quite bother me as much, but I definitely could see why some people would be a little annoyed at how long it is. I think there's probably only like 2 or 3 times where I looked at my phone just to check the time, and that was just during some certain dialogue scenes where I kind of could anticipate what would happen next. But again, that's not a detriment to the movie at all. Now, this movie is not a perfect movie, and with that being said, let's go ahead and look at some of the bad and or mixed things that I noticed in this movie. First thing that I noticed that may be slightly controversial is the utilization of Riri Williams in this movie. I know that we have her Disney Plus series coming up, but it really felt like they were like, oh, we need to find a way to introduce her, but we don't have enough time. Quick, let's find a way to put her in Wakanda Forever, and hopefully that'll get people used to her going into her actual spinoff. And it just didn't work for me, hardly at all. Especially with her and Shuri both being the exact same person. They're both super smart geniuses that can pretty much fix anything. I think Riri even mentioned that she made like a supercomputer engine, I think it was like a car engine at age 3. And it's one of those things where I feel like the Marvel writers are kind of throwing cool things in the script just to be like, oh, you got to believe that she's really, really smart because at 3 years old, she was putting together an engine. It's like, okay, cool, I get it, but telling me that you're smart as opposed to actually showing me consistently that you are smart. Like with Shuri, we've had a couple of movies to really see how intelligent she is. Riri's like, hey, I'm super smart. And everyone's like, okay, cool. I'm also getting major America Chavez vibes from Multiverse of Madness. It's just that over-exuberant, fast-talking, super sarcastic kid that basically becomes the MacGuffin of the movie where everyone has to kind of band together to protect this specific kid. And not only have we seen it happen a couple of times, between America Chavez's utilization in Multiverse of Madness and Riri Williams in Wakanda Forever, neither one really hit home for me, and I think I started to actually get slightly annoyed by the time we got to this movie. That has nothing to do with the actress at all. I think it's just the way that she is portrayed. It just wasn't something I was a big fan of. Everett Ross is in this movie, and I really don't feel like he does hardly anything at all. It honestly felt like one of those, well, he was in Black Panther 1, so we gotta put him in this one, right? And they didn't really have much for him to do, so I really feel like it would have been better to just not have him in this. I know he had that subplot with Val, but even that just really felt like it was just treading water. And in a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, I feel like we could have condensed that down a big amount, especially if you cut out some of their scenes. Another thing I wasn't a huge fan of is the way that Marvel continuously just starts to ignore stakes and consequences. Like, for example, there was a part where
that you do.
See, this is when my speech impediment kicks in, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stop saying Riri. I'm gonna start calling her Ironheart. That's gonna make my pronunciation a whole lot easier. When Ironheart, Shuri, and Okoye all have to escape the local police, they straight up blow up like 10 cop cars, and there's people standing right by the car, so you know that they're dead. These are all local police officers just doing their job, which in this case, they're being told to apprehend potential suspects. And you see Ironheart shoot up in the sky going, let's go! And it's like, you're celebrating? You just killed a bunch of innocent cops? Okay. Also, maybe you guys can help me understand this. I didn't quite make sense of this when I first saw it. So at the beginning, Angela Bassett's character basically admits that T'Challa had pledged to use vibranium to help other nations and help restore connections between different countries. But then all of a sudden she switches and she's like, oh yeah, no, my son is dead. And we're not going to share anything with you guys because we don't know what y'all are capable of. So forget what we said in our treaty. We're just not going to share any vibranium whatsoever. Doesn't that undermine Black Panther's arc in the first movie when he had to learn how to be able to become a true king and how to work with other nations and other countries to unify together and use resources to help each other? That was the whole reason why he came to his decisions at the end of the movie. And now we just completely undermine it just because she was like, oh yeah, no, I don't know how y'all are gonna do, so no thank you. That didn't quite make sense. Also, if you think about it, there's a lot of Wakandans that are super content with crossing into other countries' borders and doing whatever they want, apprehending people, causing civilian deaths, you know, ruining public property and stuff like that. And then they pretty much have this motto of, well, we do whatever we please. There's a specific line in, I think, Falcon and Winter Soldier where the Dora Milaje say,
The Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be.
I don't think that's how that works. So you choose to do all the things that you guys do, but then you also refuse to help other countries because you're afraid that they're not going to use your resources well? I don't know about that. Also, just a public service announcement for all you guys, Namor is a villain. Point blank, straight up. So many people on the internet want to try to label him as an anti-hero, being like, oh, he's redemptive, oh, he's just misunderstood. But no, he attempted global terrorism, tried to commit mass genocide, attacked an entire country, killed their queen. And those type of actions need to have consequences.
Consequences.
It's okay for a villain to have a compelling arc, but they don't need to be 100% redeemed. And I think Marvel has been throwing in way too many villains recently that are like, oh, they're just misunderstood. If you get to know them, they're really great guys. Like Killmonger, for example, is a wonderful, fantastically written villain, but I don't think he makes sense as an anti-hero because he needs to be villainous in order for the plot to continue. And to be honest, I know the whole character development for Shuri at the end of this movie is once she defeats Namor, she doesn't kill him, instead just basically makes him yield. That's all well and good, but Namor still needs to be held responsible for the crimes he's committed. And just choosing to let him go and being like, oh, he's an ally now, that doesn't make any sense. Where are the actual consequences for what he's done? And just as a small little nitpick, when Shuri gets stabbed by Namor at the end and he walks away, she pretty much just pulls herself off of the pike without even breaking a sweat. And there's no blood on the stick. There's no sense of any kind of bodily harm. And then she just front flips over him and gets the upper hand. I don't quite know if that fits in with the heart-shaped herb's powers. Now, again, it's not clearly established. We don't know exactly what comes with the power set. But if this is the case, does that mean that T'Challa's Black Panther was invincible in the first movie? And if that's the case, then we really have no reason to be concerned about the safety of Black Panther. A lot of my gripes with this movie may sound like nitpicking, but as a diehard MCU fan, there's a lot of things that I'm passionate about when it comes to how these movies and TV shows are presented. And also, don't forget, this does not take away from my enjoyment of this movie as a whole. In fact, when it comes to Phase 4 of the MCU, I would probably put this as my #2 favorite project, right below Spider-Man No Way Home. And that was a complete surprise to me. Again, with the studio completely reeling from the death of Chadwick Boseman, they really had so much that they needed to do in order to get this movie ready to go. And I think for what they were handed, they did a very, very, very good job, and that should not be taken away from them. I might actually like this movie more than the first Black Panther. But there you go, y'all. That is my review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. What did you guys think about the movie? Sound off in the comments below, and let's get a dialogue going. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I am well on the way to 1,000 subscribers, and I cannot do it without your guys' help. So if you want to join the family, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out so much. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.